Hello everyone, this is Six Path Weeb. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we continue an exciting journey in our ongoing series with part 4 of What If Naruko Joined the Inuzuka clan as a wolf? In this chapter, we'll explore how her bond with the Inuzuka clan deepens, how her instincts evolve, and how this path reshapes both her identity and the shinobi world around her. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer: the content on this channel is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage used in these videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. With that said, let's get started. A turning point under the open sky. High above the village rooftops, an unexpected confrontation unfolded. The visiting Kazekage stood close to the third Hokage, Lord Sarutobi, but instead of force or danger, a tense disagreement hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Around them, a shimmering barrier formed by the sound four glowed softly, humming with energy rather than threat. On the opposite side, Jiraiya watched carefully, ready to step in if words failed. Lord Kazekage, Sarutobi said calmly, his voice steady and wise, this is not the way I imagined our alliance would unfold. I believe the sand and the leaf shared trust. The Kazekage's eyes narrowed, though there was no cruelty in them, only resolve. The treaty was meant to test your village's readiness for change. The old ways are ending. History is ready for a new chapter. Sarutobi shook his head gently. Change should come through understanding, not fear. There is still time to talk, to choose cooperation. A quiet laugh echoed, and the Kazekage's disguise faded, revealing Orochimaru. His smile was clever rather than frightening, filled with confidence in his own plans. You always did believe in peaceful lessons, sensei. But lessons can be surprising. Sarutobi studied him carefully. You have walked a long road, Orochimaru. I hoped you would use your talents to guide others, not confuse them. With a wave of Orochimaru's hand, the ground shimmered, and three glowing figures appeared, formed of light and memory rather than anything dark or harmful. They were gentle projections of past Hokage, created to test Sarutobi's resolve and wisdom, not to cause harm. Teacher, one of the figures said warmly, this is a trial of leadership, not a battle. Sarutobi nodded. Then let us face it with dignity. Jiraiya and the observing shinobi felt a powerful wave of chakra press around them, not painful, but inspiring, like standing near a roaring waterfall of determination. Naruko's choice. Elsewhere, beneath tall trees swaying in the breeze, Naruko ran alongside her teammates. Her bright energy lifted everyone's spirits, even in tense moments. She was joined by Shikamaru, Shino, Sakura, and her loyal animal companion, Shomei, who guided them forward. Shino paused, sensing movement. 3 skilled challengers are following us. Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome timing. I'll stay here and slow them down with strategy. You all keep going. Naruko opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. She trusted him. All right, she said firmly. Be safe. We're counting on you. As they continued, Naruko noticed Sakura's worried expression. She smiled encouragingly. Sakura, you've worked so hard lately. Trust yourself. We'll face this together. Ahead, they found Sasuke resting, clearly exhausted from overexertion during training. Nearby stood Gaara, surrounded by swirling sand that responded to his emotions rather than anger. This doesn't have to turn into a fight, Naruko said, stepping forward confidently. We can help each other calm things down. Sakura nodded and focused her chakra, using her training to gently restrain Tamari's movements by shaping the earth around her feet, holding her safely in place without harm. Let's all take a breath, Sakura said firmly. No one needs to get hurt. Naruko asked Shomei to alert Jiraiya about Gaara's unstable chakra so he could get guidance, not punishment. Then she turned back, her hands glowing softly as she formed a controlled Rasengan, smaller and steadier than ever before. This isn't about winning, Naruko said to Gaara. It's about control. I know what it feels like when power gets overwhelming. Gaara hesitated, surprised. The sand slowed, then settled. Sasuke watched in awe as Naruko released the technique harmlessly into the ground, where it dispersed like ripples in water. The tension faded, replaced by quiet understanding. A lesson shared. Across the village, Sarutobi smiled faintly as he sensed the shift in chakra. It seems the next generation is already teaching us something important, he said. Even Orochimaru paused, thoughtful rather than amused. That day ended not with victory or loss, but with reflection. Friends learned to trust one another, rivals learned restraint, and Naruko took another step toward becoming the kind of leader who inspired hope simply by being herself. Naruko and the meaning of being seen. Gaara suddenly stood up and shouted with fierce determination, "Yes! You will notice me." Feigned sleep technique. He immediately fell still, allowing the powerful sand spirit within him to surface. The sand around him swirled with wild excitement, laughing loudly as if celebrating freedom. Naruko felt the sudden shift and closed her eyes tightly. Inside her thoughts, she reached out to the gentle but powerful presence she carried. "Hey," she whispered in her mind, "your sister is losing control. I could really use a little help." The great fox spirit listened, then gave a slow, thoughtful response. "Humph. You rush into trouble too quickly," it replied. "But just this once, I will share my strength. Use it wisely." Warm, glowing energy wrapped around Naruko like a soft cloak of light. She felt stronger, calmer, and more focused. With steady determination, she ran forward as the sand spirit's attack scattered harmlessly around her, never landing where she stood. Just then, a giant toad appeared in a puff of smoke, carrying Jiraiya proudly on its head. "Naruko!" Jiraiya called out. "Watch closely and follow my lead." The toad released a great wave of shimmering bubbles, and Jiraiya guided them forward. The bubbles gently surrounded the sand spirit, slowing it down and calming the storm of sand until everything grew quiet again. Naruko leapt forward and landed beside Gaara, placing her hand on the ground instead of striking him. The calming energy spread, and Gaara's eyes fluttered open as the spirit retreated, leaving him exhausted but safe. The giant toad vanished, and both children sat on the ground, breathing heavily. Naruko stood slowly and walked a short distance closer, stopping well before Gaara felt uncomfortable. "I know that look," she said softly. "The feeling that no one sees you. The feeling that you are alone even in a crowd." Gaara looked up at her, confused. "Why do you care?" he asked quietly. "Why help someone else?" Naruko smiled gently. "Because someone once helped me. They showed me that I mattered. That I wasn't alone. And I want you to know that too." Gaara thought about the words he had once been told, about kindness and protection. Something warm stirred in his chest. "Is that what makes you strong?" he asked. Naruko nodded. "Yes. Caring does." Before she could say more, Jiraiya appeared beside her. "That's enough for today," he said kindly. "Everyone is safe, and you've done more than enough." Naruko laughed tiredly. "Good timing. I think I need a break." Jiraiya steadied her as she sat down, smiling proudly. Temari and Kankuro soon arrived and helped Gaara to his feet. Gaara paused and looked back at Naruko. "It's over," he said calmly. As his siblings supported him, Gaara added quietly, "I'm sorry." Temari smiled. "It's all right, Gaara." They left together, moving forward as a family. Elsewhere, at the village. High above the village rooftops, the third Hokage stood firm. Using wisdom rather than force, he created powerful barriers that safely ended the conflict around him. "You forgot something important," he said calmly. "This village is built on care, trust, and protecting one another." His opponent retreated, unable to continue, and the Hokage leaned on his staff, tired but smiling. As the wind rustled through the leaves, he whispered, "Where leaves dance, hope always returns." The village stood peaceful once more. The next day. The morning sky was quiet and gray as soft rain fell over the village garden of remembrance. Naruko stood calmly before a tall stone engraved with names of past leaders and teachers. She wore a simple black kimono, her hands folded neatly in front of her. To her right stood Hana, also dressed in black, her face gently covered with a veil. To Naruko's left was Jiraiya, who looked older than usual, his expression thoughtful and calm. Behind them were their friends, mentors, and village leaders, all standing together in quiet respect. As the rain continued, Asuma spoke gently, "Even the sky seems to share our feelings today." An elderly villager named Homaru stepped forward. His voice was steady and warm. "We are gathered to honor a great leader," he said, "and to remember the lessons passed down to us, kindness, courage, and care for one another. Because of those lessons, our village continues to stand strong." At a distance, a masked guardian watched silently, lowering their head in respect. Nearby, Kakashi stood before another stone, quietly reading familiar names. He seemed lost in thought as a woman with purple hair approached and placed flowers beside the stone. "Are those for Hayate?" Kakashi asked kindly. The woman smiled. "Yes. And you're here early again." Kakashi nodded. This place reminds me of how important it is to keep learning and growing. Back at the gathering. Naruko looked down at the grass, her thoughts gentle but heavy. Why do the kindest people leave the biggest lessons behind? She wondered. She glanced to her side and noticed Konohamaru wiping his eyes. Iruka knelt beside him and wrapped him in a warm, reassuring hug. Jiraiya stepped forward and placed a white flower near the stone. Naruko followed, taking a deep breath. Thank you for all the stories, she thought. For believing in me. I'll carry those lessons forward. Hana leaned against Naruko, and Naruko held her carefully, offering quiet comfort. Jiraiya spoke softly, what matters most is that the dream of peace continues. That dream lives in all of you. As he said this, the rain slowly faded. Sunlight broke through the clouds and warmed the clearing. A gentle breeze passed through, carrying the distant call of a wolf. Jiraiya smiled. Wolves are close to nature. They remind us that change is part of life, and that every ending brings a new beginning. Kakashi nodded. A fitting reminder for a leader who believed in the strength of community. One by one, everyone quietly made their way home. At the village wall. At the edge of the village, two travelers stood watching the rooftops below. They wore long cloaks patterned with red clouds and wide straw hats that shaded their faces. The village has changed, said the taller one thoughtfully. Yes, replied the shorter figure. But it still stands. They turned and continued on their journey without another word. A week later. Early morning mist drifted along the road near the south gate. Two visitors approached, bells softly chiming with each step. The gate guard greeted them politely and directed them toward the village center. Elsewhere. Sasuke sat quietly on a rooftop, gazing at the sky. He thought about Naruko and the paths they each walked. I still have a lot to learn, he said to himself. A messenger bird landed nearby, and Sasuke sighed lightly. I suppose it's time. Far away. In a quiet underground study lit by candles, Orochimaru paced thoughtfully. Shelves of old scrolls and research notes lined the walls. I underestimated the strength of unity, he muttered. Kabuto adjusted his glasses. Every setback is a lesson. What matters is what we do next. Orochimaru paused, then smiled slightly. Yes. The future always has more to teach us. Back in the Leaf Village. The evening breeze carried the warm, comforting smell of broth through the village as Naruko and Hana sat together at the ramen stand, laughing softly while enjoying their meal. Naruko leaned back happily and said, "Ramen always makes my day better." Just then, Jiraiya appeared beside the stand with a thoughtful look. "Do you ever eat anything other than ramen, Naruko?" Naruko smiled and crossed her arms playfully. "Ramen is my favorite food, Jiraiya." Jiraiya chuckled, then cleared his throat. "I'm here because I need you for a special mission. It's a quiet one, and I can't share the details. I'm sorry, Hana." Hana nodded with understanding, offering Naruko an encouraging smile. Naruko's eyes lit up. "A mission? I'm ready. Let me grab my things and say goodbye properly." She paid for their meal, squeezed Hana's hand, and promised to return with stories and smiles. Elsewhere in the village. High above the rooftops, two unfamiliar travelers paused among the branches of a tall tree. "Do you know where she is?" the taller one asked calmly. "Yes," the other replied. "We'll find her soon." They moved on without a sound, blending into the quiet night. Near the Dengo stand. Kakashi stood patiently, hands in his pockets, waiting. Kurenai and Asuma soon arrived nearby. "Kakashi, waiting this early?" Asuma teased with a grin. "Just keeping an eye out," Kakashi replied casually. Inside the shop, two cloaked figures sat silently. At the mention of a familiar name, one of them stiffened slightly. Moments later, Sasuke arrived. After a brief exchange, Kakashi suggested they move elsewhere. The timing felt important, though no one said why aloud. By the canal. The cloaked travelers walked peacefully along the water when Kurenai and Asuma appeared ahead, calmly blocking the path. "You're not from around here," Asuma said evenly. "May we ask your purpose in our village?" The shorter traveler lifted their hat. Recognition dawned. "It has been some time," the traveler said politely. Rather than hostility, there was tension mixed with history. Words were exchanged, careful and measured. No one raised a weapon. Instead, illusions were gently countered, movements redirected, and misunderstandings revealed without harm. Kakashi soon arrived, sensing the imbalance. We're looking for someone important, one traveler finally said. Someone you care about. Kakashi's expression grew serious. Naruko? The travelers exchanged a glance but did not confirm or deny. Instead, they chose to leave, the air shimmering as they vanished from sight. Afterward, Kakashi felt drained and was escorted to rest, surrounded by trusted friends. There were no injuries, only concern and quiet reflection. Later that evening, Sasuke overheard worried voices speaking about Naruko and the strange visitors. Without hesitation, he headed toward the village gate, determined to make sure his teammate was safe. Naruko Uzumaki traveled beside Jiraiya along the gently winding road, her pack light and her mind busy with questions. Senko, her loyal animal companion, padded along happily, tail swishing as the sun dipped low. When they reached the next town, Jiraiya stretched his arms and smiled. Let's stop for the night. A good rest keeps the mind sharp. The hotel was quiet and cozy. After setting their bags down, Naruko flopped onto one of the beds with a satisfied sigh. Jiraiya paused, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. I'll go grab some food. I'll be back soon. Naruko, anything you want? She sat up. Something warm would be nice. Maybe barbecue-style tofu. Jiraiya nodded and glanced at Senko. And you? Senko lifted her head politely. A bone would be lovely, thank you. With that, Jiraiya stepped out. What Naruko did not know was that he remained nearby, keeping a careful watch, trusting his instincts. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Naruko sat up immediately. Senko, stay alert, she whispered. She opened the door to find two unfamiliar travelers standing calmly in the hallway. Their expressions were neutral, their voices polite. We were told a remarkable young traveler was staying here, one of them said. We hope to speak. Naruko studied them carefully. You have the wrong room, she replied evenly. Before anything else could be said, Jiraiya appeared from the end of the hall, smiling broadly. Ah, there you are. Looks like we're all just passing through. The travelers exchanged a glance, nodded respectfully, and continued on their way without another word. Once inside again, Naruko exhaled. Thanks, Godfather. Always, Jiraiya said warmly. The next morning, they continued toward the next town. As they walked, Naruko finally spoke. Jiraiya. Those people yesterday. Who are they? Jiraiya's expression turned thoughtful. There are groups out there who watch from afar. Not all of them are kind, but not all are enemies either. What matters is how you choose to grow stronger. Naruko nodded quietly, then brightened. So, when are you teaching me another technique? Jiraiya laughed. I was hoping you'd ask. How about a water-based training exercise? Her eyes lit up. I'd love that. After a moment, she added. By the way, who are we looking for again? Jiraiya smiled. My teammate. And someone you admire greatly. Tsunade. Naruko nearly tripped. Wait, really? Kanzaku town was lively and colorful. That evening, Naruko suggested they eat somewhere warm and cheerful. Jiraiya agreed immediately. Inside a welcoming restaurant, Jiraiya suddenly froze. Well, Naruko, he said slowly, your luck is impressive. He waved enthusiastically across the room. Hey, Tsunade. A woman with kind brown eyes and long blonde hair turned, surprised. She wore a simple, elegant outfit suited for travel, and her posture carried confidence earned through years of experience. Jiraiya? She said. What are you doing here? They joined her table, along with her gentle assistant, Shizune. Naruko bowed respectfully before sitting. She observed quietly, listening carefully. Jiraiya eventually spoke clearly. Tsunade, the village wants you to take on an important role of leadership. Tsunade paused, considering. That's not something to decide lightly. Naruko finally spoke, her voice calm but sincere. You've helped many people. Your knowledge still matters. Tsunade looked at her with curiosity. And who are you? Naruko Uzumaki, she replied. I'm studying healing because I believe helping others is one of the strongest paths. Tsunade smiled faintly. Still, she shook her head. I've spent too long looking backward. Naruko stood, turning slightly away. Sometimes, the future waits patiently. Even when we aren't ready. Jiraiya followed her outside. The night air was cool and quiet. You handled that well, he said. Naruko looked up at the stars. I still believe people can grow. Even heroes. They continued down the lantern-lit street, the journey far from over, but brighter for what lay ahead. Tsunade sat quietly at a small table, her hands folded, staring into the distance as if deep in thought. Shizune noticed her mentor's distant expression and gently sighed. Without saying anything, she stood up and calmly stepped outside with Tuntun, giving Tsunade space to think things through. Moments later, Tsunade followed. As she exited the building, she noticed Naruko walking nearby alongside Jiraiya. Tsunade called out sharply, surprising Naruko and causing her to stumble forward into a nearby wall with a loud thump. The wall cracked slightly, but Naruko quickly dusted herself off. Shizune hurried over, worried, only to find Tsunade frozen in place, staring at the wall. Jiraiya stood nearby, oddly relaxed, with a confident smile. Beside Shizune, a large wolf appeared, her eyes calm and gentle. "Do not worry," the wolf said kindly in a soft, feminine voice. "Naruko will be fine. She always is." Sure enough, Naruko stepped out from the dust, stretching her shoulders as if nothing had happened. Any scratches she had vanished as she stood tall, smiling with confidence. "That was surprising," Naruko said cheerfully. "But how about we settle this with a friendly spar? No tricks, just skills." Tsunade raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "All right," she said. "If you can tag me even once, I will return to the village and take on responsibility again." Naruko's eyes lit up. "Then I ask only one thing," she replied. "Please teach me. I want to learn how to help others the way you do." Tsunade paused, then nodded. "Deal." Jiraiya leaned toward Shizune and whispered, "She really chose the right path. That girl never gives up on people." The spar that followed was quick and light-hearted, more like a test of awareness and clever thinking than a real fight. Naruko used quick steps, clever feints, and a spinning ball of glowing blue energy that gently pushed Tsunade off balance. Laughing in surprise, Tsunade conceded. "You certainly caught me off guard," Tsunade admitted with a warm smile. "I should not have judged you so quickly." Naruko grinned. "That is what teachers are for, right?" As they stood together, Tsunade's expression softened. "You remind me of someone very dear to me," she said. "May I ask? Do you know your mother's name?" Naruko nodded. "Her name was Kushina Uzumaki." Tsunade closed her eyes, taking a breath. "She was my close friend. I was meant to watch over you, but I was told you were gone. I ran away instead of staying strong." Before she could say more, Naruko stepped forward and wrapped her in a warm hug. "Well," Naruko said gently, "now you are here. And that means we can start fresh." Tsunade smiled, tears shining but happy. "I would like that." Nearby, Shizune watched with amazement. She glanced at the wolf beside her and asked, "May I ask who you are?" The wolf smiled. "My name is Senko. Naruko helped my family when she was very young. We watch over each other." Jiraiya chuckled. "That is Naruko. She gathers people without even trying." As the group walked back together, the air felt lighter. Old regrets were replaced with new beginnings, and Naruko walked proudly at the center, smiling brightly. She had not just gained a teacher that day, but something far more precious: family, trust, and a future built on kindness and growth. And that was exactly the kind of hero she was meant to be. Later that evening at the inn, the warm glow of lantern light filled the cozy hotel room as Naruko sat cross-legged on a cushioned chair, happily munching on a rice ball. Around her, the room felt calmer than it had earlier in the day. Naruko looked up at her godmother, who was now fully clear-headed and relaxed. Aunt Tsunade," Naruko asked gently, "what did Orochimaru say when he came to talk with you and Shizune?" Tsunade folded her arms, thoughtful but steady. "He asked me to help him restore something that no longer worked properly," she explained. "In return, he promised something that went against my values." Jiraiya sighed and shook his head. "Let me guess. He said it wasn't allowed, but tried to make it sound tempting anyway," he said. "That's his way. He twists ideas until they stop feeling right." Tsunade nodded firmly. "We're supposed to meet him in a week to give an answer," she said, eyes determined. "But I've already decided. I won't go along with anything that hurts others or breaks trust." Jiraiya smiled proudly. "That's the Tsunade I know." Naruko beamed and gave a confident nod. "And I'll get to show you what I've been learning," she said, gently resting her hand on Senko's soft fur. "I want to help people in my own way." 3 days later. The group stood in an open clearing beneath a bright sky. Tsunade faced Orochimaru calmly, her posture strong and steady. Orochimaru gave a light, amused laugh. "So your answer is no," he said. How disappointing. Before tension could rise, Kabuto stepped forward, alert but cautious. Lord Orochimaru, he said, they're not alone. Another mentor is nearby. And Naruko as well. Tsunade smiled knowingly. Exactly. With a soft rush of wind, Naruko emerged beside her friends, landing lightly on the ground. Jiraiya and Shizune appeared moments later, forming a united line. Kabuto adjusted his glasses, studying Naruko curiously. I always wondered about you, he said. Your skills are unusual, especially your talent for healing and sensing. Naruko met his gaze calmly. I just want to help people, she replied. That's all. A different kind of power. Large companion creatures appeared beside each group, not to fight, but to show support and presence. They stood peacefully, watching over everyone. Naruko noticed that Tsunade and Jiraiya looked tired from earlier travel. She took a deep breath and turned to Shizune, Senko, and Tonton. I'm going to focus for a moment, Naruko said kindly. Could you stay close and keep things calm? They nodded and stepped near her. Naruko brought her hands together and focused. A soft pink glow surrounded her, warm and gentle like sunlight through petals. Two streams of glowing energy flowed toward Tsunade and Jiraiya. Shizune watched in amazement. Naruko, why is your chakra pink? Naruko smiled softly, concentrating. It's because my energy naturally blends vitality, care, and balance, she explained. I don't force it. It just flows. The light wrapped around Tsunade and Jiraiya like a comforting blanket. Their tiredness faded, and their smiles returned. Tsunade looked down at her hands, eyes wide with wonder. I feel refreshed, she said. Like I just rested for days. Jiraiya laughed. Well, I guess the next generation really is something special. Orochimaru watched silently, clearly surprised. Naruko lowered her hands, a little tired but happy. I still have a lot to learn, she said, but if my power can help people feel better, then I'll keep practicing. Tsunade placed a gentle hand on Naruko's shoulder. You already surpass expectations, she said warmly. From that day forward, things continued much like the original journey. Except now, healing, hope, and kindness played a much bigger role. And Naruko continued walking her path, glowing not just with chakra, but with compassion. The next day, morning sunlight filtered through the trees as Naruko walked along the village path with Tsunade and Jiraiya. The air felt calm and full of promise. Tsunade glanced at Naruko with a confident smile. When we get back, Tsunade said, your training will begin. That technique you used was fascinating, and we are going to help you refine it with care and patience. I also plan to speak with Lady Katsuyu about teaching you gentle healing summons, and I will guide you in building strong, controlled strength. Naruko nodded eagerly. Yes, Tsunade-sensei. I'll do my best. She then turned to Jiraiya. May I ask you a favor? Jiraiya raised an eyebrow, interested. Go on. I was hoping you might consider mentoring my teammate, Sakura Haruno, Naruko said politely. She has a talent for earth techniques, a bit of fire skill, and a real gift for illusion techniques. She's very precise and thoughtful, and with guidance, she could grow even more. Jiraiya smiled and nodded. I'll speak with her once we're back. The rest of the walk passed quickly, filled with light conversation and shared stories that helped them understand one another better. When they reached the village, they headed straight to the Hokage Tower. Naruko paused briefly to send a message to her family at the compound, asking them to gather later that evening. Inside the tower, Naruko and Shizune walked ahead of Tsunade, pointing out rooms and explaining daily routines. Jiraiya waved goodbye and wandered off, saying he had research to attend to. As they walked down the hallway, a young boy hurried in from a side entrance and accidentally bumped into Tsunade. Everyone froze for a moment. Shizune quickly cleared her throat. Lady Tsunade, the elders are waiting, she said gently. Tsunade sighed, then nodded. All right, let's go. Naruko noticed the boy looking embarrassed and uneasy. She knelt down to his level and smiled kindly. Hey, it's okay. Why don't you head over to the compound later? Some of the kids would love to see you. We'll have food by the pond this evening. The boy's face brightened. Really? That sounds great. Naruko gave him a friendly wave and hurried to catch up with Tsunade and Shizune. Inside the Hokage's office, the room felt quiet and formal. Tsunade took her seat at the desk, with Naruko and Shizune standing proudly nearby. Soon, the village advisors entered and formally welcomed Tsunade as the fifth Hokage, explaining the upcoming announcements and preparations. Tsunade groaned softly. So much ceremony. Naruko and Shizune exchanged knowing smiles. After the advisors departed, a large stack of paperwork was delivered. Tsunade stared at it in disbelief, then rested her forehead on the desk. Naruko chuckled. You could use your shadow techniques to help. Then we can visit everyone at the hospital together. Tsunade's eyes lit up. She hugged Naruko tightly. You are brilliant. Thank you. With the work quickly organized, the three of them headed out, ready to check on friends and begin this new chapter together. As they left the tower, they ran into Shikamaru and his father. They exchanged friendly greetings, and Naruko felt a warm sense of belonging. A new journey had begun, one filled with learning, kindness, and steady growth, and Naruko walked forward with confidence, knowing she was supported every step of the way. At the hospital. The hallway of the village hospital was quiet and calm, filled with soft light and the gentle scent of clean linens. Tsunade paused outside one of the rooms and knocked lightly. May I come in? She asked kindly. Inside, a pink-haired girl sitting beside the bed looked up in surprise. Who are you? Sakura asked. In her thoughts, she couldn't help noticing that the woman carried a warm, confident presence. Before Tsunade could answer, a cheerful blonde girl stepped forward. Naruko stood behind Tsunade with a relaxed smile. Hey, Sakura, Naruko said gently. Don't worry. Lady Tsunade is amazing at helping people feel better. Sasuke is in good hands. Tsunade stepped closer to the bedside, her expression thoughtful and focused. Sakura stood and bowed politely. You must be the healer my sensei told me about. Please. If you can, help Sasuke wake up. Naruko watched quietly, remembering how tired Sasuke had been after pushing himself too hard during training. She was relieved she had been able to help stabilize him earlier. Tsunade placed her hand gently on Sasuke's forehead. A soft green light shimmered as she focused her chakra, filling the room with a peaceful glow. After several minutes, she stepped back. Soon, Sasuke stirred and slowly opened his eyes. Naruko smiled brightly. Welcome back. Sakura's eyes filled with happy tears. Sasuke-kun. She leaned forward and hugged him carefully. With a satisfied nod, Tsunade turned toward the door. Naruko followed, calling out softly, Tsunade-ka-san, Shizune, there are two more people we should check on. Kakashi and Lee. Kakashi's room was quiet as well. Tsunade repeated the same gentle healing process, and not long after, Kakashi woke up with a tired sigh. I suppose I need to rest more, he said lightly. Tsunade crossed her arms, though there was warmth in her voice. Even the best need breaks sometimes. Nearby, Might Guy peeked from behind a curtain, clearly wanting to say something. Naruko noticed and spoke up quickly. Guy-sensei looks like he has something important to share. Guy rushed forward. Rock Lee is just down the hall. They soon found Lee carefully moving with the help of crutches. When Tsunade examined him, her expression became serious but not unkind. Lee, she said gently, your body has been under a great deal of strain. It would be understandable if you chose to rest and recover instead of training for a while. Lee looked shaken, but Guy knelt beside him proudly. You are strong no matter what path you choose. After careful thought and much research over the following days, Tsunade and her apprentices discovered a way to improve Lee's recovery and help him return to training safely. When Tsunade shared the good news, Lee smiled through happy tears, thanking everyone with deep gratitude. The compound and the evening gathering. Later, Naruko returned home with Tsunade and Shizune. The compound was rugged but beautiful, surrounded by nature and filled with warmth. Young wolf pups scampered around happily, filling the air with playful sounds. Inside, laughter erupted when the pups tumbled into a friendly pile near the fireplace. Even the usually calm residents couldn't help but smile. Hana soon appeared, amused by the scene. Naruko wrapped her arms around her warmly. Hana-koi, Naruko said, smiling, this is Tsunade, the fifth Hokage, my mentor and godmother. And this is Shizune. Hana greeted them kindly, pleased to see how much Naruko was supported. That evening, everyone gathered by the pond for a quiet family barbecue. The water reflected the stars, and the air was filled with calm conversation and laughter. Tsunade admitted softly that she appreciated evenings like this, peaceful, surrounded by people who cared for one another. Naruko sat beside her and asked gently how she was feeling after everything at the hospital. I'll keep working, Tsunade said with determination. There is always a way to help someone, if you don't give up. Naruko smiled. I know. That's why I believe in you. Dash. A new beginning. Over the next week, Tsunade officially took on her role as Hokage, while continuing her research with Naruko and Shizune. Lee's recovery plan was set, and his future looked hopeful. Soon after, Tsunade called several respected shinobi together. Standing proudly before them, Naruko listened as Tsunade spoke. Despite recent events, your growth, judgment, and teamwork have been exceptional, Tsunade said. With the support of your instructors, I am proud to recognize you. She looked up with a smile. From this day forward, Shikamaru and Naruko, you are promoted to Chunin. Strive to be examples of wisdom and kindness. The room filled with smiles and quiet applause. As everyone departed, Naruko noticed Tsunade smiling mischievously. Training ground 100, Tsunade said cheerfully. Tomorrow. Be ready. Naruko laughed nervously but nodded. Whatever came next, she knew she would face it with confidence, support, and a hopeful heart. Dear YouTube family, this is all for now. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps the community grow and keeps the journey going. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.